What's up, Goon Squad? Welcome back once again to another edition of the Football Goons podcast. Exciting times are upon us, folks, as the offseason is officially over. We've had a preseason football game, believe it or not, at this point already, and everything to this point from here on out is full speed ahead. And if you've been following us all offseason, then you know that we never take our foot off the gas pedal anyway. We've been going strong all offseason, getting you ready for the 2017 NFL season. I'm going to just throw it out to you guys. What makes you love this time of the year right on the cusp of the NFL season so much to each goon here?
It's just the anticipation of it. Like, I know I don't speak for just the four of us, but football fans across the country, we're just dying all off season. Like, there's so much coverage. You hear so much about what Team A and Team B are doing. You know, you fully put yourself into free agency and who you want, and then you do the same for the draft. And then it's all summer kind of peeking at the practices and OTAs and seeing what's going on. And it's just so much anticipation to it. And even throwing our edge into it with fantasy where, you know, we did our draft lottery in April, and we've been talking nonstop about who's this guy going to take and talking about trading draft picks. South and I are right there, I think, for a little trade up for myself. But, you know, the anticipation of for the last 5 months, I've been what ifing, and we're yay close to like finding out the answers. You know, I honestly, like 26 fan bases could probably say, like, you know, we could do it this year. You know what I mean? Like, and that's the beauty of football. It's not basketball where, like, you got to be a Celtics, Cavs, Spurs, or Warriors fan to be like, hey, we might win it. You know, but like football, there's a bunch that could say, hey, the stuff breaks right, we could do it. And I think that's what makes it great. We're just so close to finding out if all those things we've been hashing out and thinking about are going to come to fruition here and for over the next couple months.
Yeah, football for me, I mean, for most Americans is the most popular sport in the country, and it's also got the shortest season of the three major sports. So we have yes, we have a lot of things that are bigger in football in the offseason than other sports like free agency and the draft, but like you wait the longest for the games of any other sport. So you're like, you know, by August 1st, you're chomping at the bit. So I mean, I love the time when baseball's no longer the only thing on television.
Oh gosh, that's the best. Yeah, for me, you guys know how I love Christmas time, and this is like Christmas time, like the anticipation building up to it. But it's not like Christmas time now, which I love. It's like Christmas time when I was a kid. It's just so exciting, just the waiting and I guess the draft is like, what gift are you gonna get? But now, what big gift? Like, you got your stocking at the draft, right, but you got a chance for like that Power Wheels car come February now.
Yeah, I was never getting that Power Wheels car. So now, to me, the biggest thing, honestly, and I'm not going to go into this, but I do love baseball. So you add the playoff baseball, it's all bonus. But it's the fantasy draft season, because that's the best part about fantasy football. Forget the week-to-week stuff. The draft is the best part, even for as great as everything else is. So, you know, we're in the season where we're drafting fantasy teams. We're getting preseason football. We're getting hyped up about, you know, some practice squad wide receiver who is going to be a deep sleeper this year. Like,
is that Nelson Aguilar?
Greg Ward. Greg Ward.
Is Nelson Aguilar the sleeper that's a practice squad player?
That's my guy right there. Country grammar. Nice. All right. Well, hey, this week we're exclusively talking about the American Football Conference. And before you tune out, because the AFC is hot garbage, we promise.
Shut up.
We promise it's still going to be fun and informative. And just for those of you that have not been listening to us, you know, all this time, first of all, shame on you. But second, we have two AFC guys, two NFC guys, and the NFC guys are, you know, just 100% in on the NFC and the fact that it's not anywhere near as predictable as the AFC is. So, you know, we give each other a hard time. You'll hear a lot of that throughout the podcast tonight, but ultimately it's football and we love it. So we're going to take a look at each team heading into the 2017 season. We're going to highlight some areas of concern, some interests, or where they might have big questions heading into the season. And we're going to do our best to let you know what kind of season to expect from them without giving you any kind of official predictions at this point. If you're listening and watching live on YouTube, feel free to chime in, send us your questions and comments as we go along the way, and we'll try to get to those as we're talking tonight. Let's dive right in here. Let's go to the AFC East division. And we're going to start with the Buffalo Bills. And what I have highlighted here as kind of the major thing for the Buffalo Bills, they've had a lot of organizational changeover this year. Obviously, head coach, front office, GM, all kinds of stuff going on. Can they compete this year, or are they strictly in a rebuilding situation? Because they do have some talented pieces, but with so much overhaul, is it going to be a situation where they're just there as a holdover?
If by compete you mean like for a wild card, then yeah, I guess the possibility is there somewhat. But we're talking about the AFC East here. And even as a resident fan of a team in this division, even I'm not stupid enough to know that the Patriots are going to win this division.
Well, in fairness, Miles
still play there. They didn't change.
Yeah, Miles did say that if things break the right way, so if like Brady breaks like both arms and a leg, then maybe
it's possible.
Did he break all his bones in a car accident with Jimmy Garoppolo next to him, or Jimmy Garoppolo would still be the best quarterback in this division? So.
Wow.
No, I guess one of the things I'm looking at it specifically is with Tyrod Taylor. Does he have any kind of job security at this point? Because what tends to happen is as these new regimes come in, there's changeover, and they're going to want to put their own guy there. So we've seen some glimpses of talent there, especially for what they've wanted to do in the past and be a run-first team. So I guess that's kind of the biggest question. Are we going to get an overhaul and have to start to rebuild, or is he kind of safe?
I like Tyrod. Buffalo, I think, is actually going to be more fun than we might expect on offense. And it's hard to bench the quarterback when the offense is playing well. I think the skill guys around him are really good. I like Zay Jones. Sammy Watkins in a contract year. You give me 13 years, he's going for 1,100 yards. I just feel like the guy's ready to break out a little bit, and Shady is what he is. So I think Tyrod's safe, mostly because the unit he's on is going to play well.
Yeah,
I don't think any of us think TJ Yates or Nate Peterman are the answer either. I think Nate Peterman has a chance to be a good quarterback, but I don't think it's right now. And I think he could be an Aaron Rodgers type situation. I'm not calling Tyrod Brett Favre or Nate Peterman Aaron Rodgers.
Write it down.
I'm gonna write that down. I think it's actually the exact same situation. I think it could be a similar situation in that I think he is going to be an actually good quarterback, but they're going to give him some time to get ready and get used to it. There's no reason to rush him in right now.
If you would have asked me this question like a month ago, I probably would have said that I didn't think Tyrod was safe with everything that happened this offseason. But within the last 2 weeks, they just traded his only real legitimate backup that had any time behind him at this point in Cardale Jones. So now you have TJ Yates' first year in Buffalo, and you have Peterman, who they drafted, who I think is going to be their eventual quarterback of the future, but that's at least a year to 2 years away. So yeah. I think Tyrod's safe for now.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I like Peterman a lot. I do think that this is kind of an audition with the new leadership in that organization, though, for Tyrod. I do think he is safe for this year, but I don't think they're going to, commit to him long term at this point. I think they want to see, for themselves how this plays out. So it should be interesting to watch for sure. Our next team on the list here from the AFC East is the Miami Dolphins. And a lot of interesting news coming out of the Dolphins this week. Ryan Tannehill goes down untouched in live practice. They're fearing the worst, according to some reports in Miami. Obviously, we saw earlier today they signed Jay Cutler. And even for as much as I don't think anybody's hyped on Jay Cutler, they got him out of the bargain bin for $10 million this season, which is a deep discount at the quarterback position. So you've got a veteran quarterback coming in there. I guess the biggest question right now, there's a decent amount of talent on this team. And the biggest question was the quarterback position already. So I'll ask this: who starts for them? Is it a given that it's Cutler, or does Matt Moore have a little bit of an edge? And whoever starts, are they going to be good enough that they can make a run at, a wild card spot?
One, whoever starts is not good enough to help them make a run on a wild card. But I actually think they brought Jay Cutler in as more of a security option at this point. I think after watching the end of last season when Matt Moore, was forced into play, I think they're at least comfortable rolling with him to start the season. But you need a veteran behind him just in case the season starts to slip away. Miss that much time. So I think that's why you bring in Cutler. I mean, maybe it is to compete right off the bat, but I mean, Moore's the guy who's already got a full year and a half in this offense. And Cutler, I mean, in fairness, Cutler did play for Adam Gase in Chicago, so that definitely bodes well for him. But he hasn't played with this group, so I think Moore has a slight advantage. But, that either one of those guys I don't think is good enough to get this team over the hump. I think as bad as Ryan Tannehill has been, he's still better than both of those options.
I think they definitely brought Cutler into play. I think he's the starter. I mean, unless and even so, I think he'll compete with Tannehill. But if Tannehill's out, I think Cutler's the starter from day one. I think that they'll name him immediately, at least internally. It might not put it out there, but yeah. And I will mention real quick too before you jump in, Miles. It looked like you agreed there, which I like that. But I've seen a lot of people with this news move Landry down. If anything, I'm moving Landry up. He's going to get the ball forced to him so much. And I saw a stat that one time Cutler, their last full year together, Cutler gave the ball to Alshon 31% of his shares. So on a conservative side, Cutler's going to throw 550 times, which I think he'll throw more. That's 10.66 targets per game for Landry. I think if Cutler's the quarterback, Landry will absolutely be top 3 or 4 in targets this season.
Yeah, I agree totally. There's no way Cutler's coming out of the booth in a comfy job to be Matt Moore's backup. No. So, he not only did he play for Gase, he had his highest completion percentage of his career that year with the Bears. And just small fantasy nugget, I sort of agree with you. If anything, with Cutler's big arm, I think this helps Devontae Parker a ton.
Yeah, I think it helps. I think it helps both of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is definitely a situation where if you listen to what's being reported, basically Adam Gase just would not take no for an answer from Cutler. He begged him to come out and play. So I don't think you go through all that trouble for him to come in and not play. I'm sure that something could shake out where eventually he's not starting for you. But I think out of the gate, obviously he's your guy. He's, it's going to sound funny to say this, but he's proven at this point. So, I think you have to roll with them. But I do actually think that more than anything, this is going to drive home the fact that they're going to really need to run the ball. You don't want Jay Cutler throwing the ball a ton of times this season. And they're probably going to play from behind a little bit and have to, but I think especially early on, like you need to establish your running game. And by all accounts, that's what they were going to try and do with Tannehill too. So it'll be interesting to see that. All right, let's talk about the defending Super Bowl champion New England Patriots. This is the part where Rocco probably gets tuned out or gets angry. But unfortunately, they are still in this conference. We do have to talk about them. So if the Patriots have any weakness on this team, on this roster, where is it? Because by all accounts, they are the consensus favorite out of the AFC to appear in the Super Bowl. So just from an opinion standpoint, where's the weakness on this team?
Miles kind of said it before, like jokingly, that he would take the Jets defensive line.
Yeah, I wasn't joking.
Well, no, yeah. I mean, yes, I would take the Jets defensive line over the Patriots. That might be their only weakness, although I don't even think it's that weak. You know what I mean?
I wouldn't call it a weakness. Yeah.
I wouldn't call it a weakness. It's the weak spot of their very, 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 very strong team. So, the USA Today put it out earlier on this summer that they predict that the Patriots are going 16-0. Now, right off the bat, I hope that's a jinx right there, but there's a reason why they think they're going 16-0. So, pretty good team all around if people are thinking that you can go undefeated.
Yeah, there's.
I don't think they have any weak parts other than quarterback.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, like most teams over the history of my time watching football, I would say the weakness on this team has the potential, at least, to be overconfidence, but the quarterback's not going to let that happen.
No, the quarterback won't let it happen. The coach won't let it happen. The coach is going to berate them every week to get them ready.
Although the owner did, Miles, you told us the owner did something a little cocky and overconfident this week.
Yeah, he already sent out AFC Championship game tickets to the season ticket owners.
He's the worst.
Just to save the mailer, but it's that's irrelevant. The Patriots are what they always are. You look over the starting lineup and you're like, I don't know, they're all right, but anybody with a football brain knows like the names on the back of the jersey doesn't matter except for Brady. and then from there, the guys, they only have guys without names that buy into their system and work hard, and that just works. You can win with that.
Yeah, personally, I don't see any way that they're not in the Super Bowl again, other than some kind of catastrophic injury. And even then, it's going to be hard because they're pretty deep just about everywhere. I do think that if a team is going to beat them, it's going to be by running the football. You're just going to have to completely control the game from that standpoint and run the ball on them. That's kind of to a degree where Atlanta fell apart in the Super Bowl a little bit, but even still at that, it's going to be a tough task. All right, let's round out the AFC East here and talk about the New York Jets. Now, I know this is going to be he's leaving for this one too. This is going to be tough to discuss because there's not a whole lot to be excited about here. So we're probably not going to spend a lot of time on it. But in a clear rebuilding season for this team, we're pretty much expecting that they're going to struggle. The one area that I'm thinking about, though, are we sleeping on that defense a little bit? Could that defense potentially cost them a number 1 or number 2 overall pick?
No,
because listen, that defensive line is so good. I'm not being a homer when I say that. It's just studs along the defensive line. And listen, I love Jamal Adams, but even as a rookie, I think that secondary is going to struggle a lot. You're very, very young at linebacker, and although we're athletic, I think it takes a while for that to gel. You have one strength on this team right now, and it's defensive line. That is not enough to win you 3 games. No. So, and 2 games or less is going to get you the number 1 pick this year. So,
and on top of that, as strong as the defensive line is, that's how weak legitimately almost the entire rest of the roster is. Like, the offensive line is going to struggle. The receivers are okay, but from what I understand, Quincy Enunwa went down today with a neck injury of some sort.
Yep.
Listen, when you're a bad team, you're not going to play around with that. If his neck is wrong, he shouldn't put his helmet on all year. Right. I mean, so you're basically looking at a team that has an incredible defensive line and Bilal Powell and rookie Jamal Adams. I mean, that's basically what you have. So, no. I mean, if they don't get the top pick, worse teams have not gotten it, I guess. But, it's not something I'm going to sit here and project that they won't. And what's great for them, though, is even without that top pick, by all accounts, there's 4 to 5 top 10 quarterbacks coming out in this next draft. So should you, we'll say, mess it up to the point where you draft 3rd, all right, I'll take Josh Allen. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, you should be okay.
It's not Andrew Luck or forget it at this point.
No, I don't want to settle.
All right, we're not going to spend the next hour talking about what you want in the draft.
The only thing that we are going to talk about related to Rocco, just real quick, 5-second answer: how many weeks into the season before he hates and quits football?
Already,
he said it last week.
Yeah, that's already done.
It's all about the Sons of Anarchy fantasy season.
I got halftime week 1.
I said it to the guys last week. The only way I'm going to be mad this season is if they do somehow screw it up and win 7 games and don't wind up with a top 10 pick, but also don't make the playoffs, which I am fully prepared to accept that they're not making the playoffs this year. But yeah, I'll be more mad if they win 7 games than if they lose all of them.
All right. Well, let's move on to the AFC North, and I got to tell you right up front here, these first two divisions, it's kind of depressing talking about them because, at least in my opinion,
it's AFC football, which is depressing in general.
Shut
Well, you know
up.
what?
but even further,
Wait, this throat
Even
punching,
further-
everyone.
you look at it even further though. Like I think that there's clear-cut division winners in these two divisions, and it makes it a little bit less fun to talk about. So we are getting to some better competition coming up. But let's talk about the AFC North, and we'll park it at the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens are already being ravaged by injuries.
Good.
Flacco most likely gets back to play at some point here, but it's a back issue, so it could be lingering. Do they have to get back to that old school Baltimore approach of being a run-first team in order to compete, or do they need to air it out?
I don't care about their style of play so much with being able to compete. They've just lost that drafting touch that they used to have, where it was like every pick they made was a gold mine. And now it's like, yeah, all right, C.J. Mosley, I loved that pick. But, what other major difference makers have they taken recently? It's a bunch of guys that, Torrey Smith's gone. Tim Jernigan's gone to the same team. Thanks for both of those guys. But, Jimmy Smith at corner didn't really pan out. It's just a bunch of picks that the Ravens have made that they're just a very mediocre team. It's not because they don't run the ball that they can't compete with Pittsburgh. They're just not in the same level of team as Pittsburgh at all at this point.
Yeah. The defense is still, I think I
It's
don't
good.
want to say it's good.
Good-ish.
It's top
It's
half.
good-ish.
It's top half of the league good. You know what I mean? But their offense has fallen so far from what it used to be that yes, they're not the running team they used to be, but they're also not a very good passing team. So,
No.
it's not like they've gotten away from the run and they've been doing and they've, exceeded expectations with the pass. They're struggling all over offense. So, it's unfortunately, honestly, I would not be surprised at all to see the Ravens finish last in this division this year.
Yeah, and you asked too about should they go back to a running team. I don't really think it's an option. Like Lorenzo Taliaferro sucks. Terrence West, a little better than sucks. And so you asked about should they go away from the passing attack? Well, they brought in Jeremy Maclin. They have Rashad Perriman, who hopefully is going to be healthy because I'd like to see what he can do if he's healthy. And they brought in Danny Woodhead. They're not looking to run the ball. They just want to pass the ball. If Flacco comes back and is healthy, he might break the record for passing attempts this season because running the ball is not an option, and they're going to be losing. So,
but the point is that doesn't matter. He was one attempt behind Drew Brees last year, and almost 900 yards less, 17 touchdowns less.
He sucks. You don't have to argue that with me.
I know I don't have to argue with you, but they don't have to get back to running the football. They can feel free to air it out and beat Pittsburgh. They just don't have good players.
No, including the quarterback.
Maybe especially the quarterback.
Amen.
You're talking about he had a worse touchdown percentage than Blake Bortles by a lot.
Delicious.
It's so weird to say this, but the worst thing that happened to that franchise moving forward was winning that Super Bowl because you had to pay Joe Flacco.
Yep.
And we had this whole is Flacco elite. I still love it when I go places and it's there's a Twitter ask me anything and it's politics and somebody submits is Flacco elite. It still makes me laugh every time. But the worst thing that could have happened to you, obviously you want that Lombardi and you're not going to turn that back in for anything, but then you paid Flacco and you locked him up long term. And I think that that's kind of what's really holding them back more than anything at this point.
Yeah.
So not to drag this on, but Joe Flacco was on the cusp of maybe the conversation of being elite enough to warrant the question, at least enough to warrant the question. So where is, in your guys' mind, where is the biggest? Is it the talent around him that's dropped off so much that now we see what he really is, or what is it?
Well, you say no. Yeah, the defense is no longer an elite defense, and Ray Rice is gone.
Yeah.
Like, he was never good. The
No.
question should be, is Joe Flacco good?
Yeah.
Probably still no.
And still not. No.
Like, the question comes up because everybody wants to label any Super Bowl quarterback elite, but just like Trent Dilfer, last time the Ravens won it, he was one of the last reasons they. Now, he had a great playoff run. I'll give him that, but
that's what Flacco had.
Yeah.
No, that's what I'm saying. Flacco.
Oh, well,
Dilfer
had a decent playoff run too, but
that's not why they were in position to win a Super Bowl.
Heck no.
No, those 3 playoff games are the only thing that made anybody even think, like, is he maybe good? I don't really know, but it was just kind of like they caught lightning in a bottle, and they just threw it all the way.
I think the question everybody would – I think the better phrasing you ever should have asked is, wait, Flacco isn't good, is he?
That is better.
All right. So let's go from one situation where we're trying to figure out if someone's any good to let's try and figure out if a whole team is any good. We're talking about the Cincinnati Bengals. You know, last year the Bengals were a Super Bowl pick by a lot of people, including a couple folks right here in this conversation. They did not live up to those expectations last year. So, number one, I guess, can they get back to the playoffs because they've been a almost perennial playoff team? And if they don't, is this finally the swan song for Marvin Lewis?
It has to be.
Yeah.
It has to be.
Yeah, and I think it will be. I don't think this is a very good team anymore. I think that window shut on them, and unfortunately they just couldn't get over the Pittsburgh hump because I think 2 years ago, if they – or 2 or 3, I don't remember now at this point, but if Jeremy Hill doesn't fumble that game away, I think that team could go somewhere. And unfortunately it happened for them. But with the departures, I think the point is whether they win or not, it's still Cincinnati and people don't want to play there. But the line is dilapidated and they're killing me there. They still – I know Joe Mixon's brought in, but by most of what I'm seeing, this is still going to be at best a 3-man backfield. At worst for them, it's a Jeremy Hill backfield still. I don't know why, but it is. They still want to give the ball to Gio. We'll see what happens, but I just too many departures, too much turmoil, too many just kind of bad dudes that play for the team. I think they're going to sink this year big time, and yes, Marvin Lewis will be gone as a result.
Yeah, so I mean, like, am I misreading things? But like, were we just really hyped up on their defense? And in reality, the defense doesn't hold up their end of the bargain at all.
Yeah,
they're just not
bad.
very good.
Yep.
So I think we got so hyped up on this Bengals train last year thinking, wow, they're a pretty good defense, and they're just really not good at all.
Well, and Andy Dalton was excellent too in 2015. So when you combined efficient quarterback play, I'm not calling him Aaron Rodgers, but he was more than efficient. And you combine that with the fact that the defense was lights out and it really took like 9 steps back last year.
Yeah, it has to do with the fact that the 2015 version of the Bengals we saw was the best that they possibly could be, which was playoff caliber, but not Super Bowl caliber. And I think we all just expected that to just progress in 2016. Well, it degressed, and now this is what we are left with at this point. I think Mixon is a huge upgrade, but if they're not going to play him, then Mixon's not an upgrade anymore. I like John Ross as a compliment to A.J. Green, but if the line sucks and they don't have time to throw the ball, the fact that John Ross can run by everybody doesn't matter. The defense has to play better, and I don't know if they're capable of it as they're getting older and older and older. So there's just too many question marks here. I like them. I think if everything clicked in the right spot for them, they could fight for a 9-7 wild card spot. But everything has to go right and nothing can go wrong. So, I mean, what are the chances that happens in an NFL season?
Yeah, that was said perfectly. I just don't think anybody was mentally prepared for 2015 to be the peak.
Yes,
we all saw, man, this team, look what they just did, and they're still young, and here they go. But that might have maxed out.
I actually disagree. I think it should be his final song here, his swan song. But I think they're good enough to go at least 9-7. I think they'll probably go 10-6. I think they'll probably still miss the playoffs, but be just good enough to be in that conversation, and they'll say, well, let's give Marvin Lewis another shot, because it's what they do. They just give Marvin Lewis another shot. But I like them to go 10-6 this season, even against the Steelers, playing a pretty rough schedule. I think they upgraded enough for that.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see how that plays out for sure. I just have to ask this question because I know he's Miles' boy, and we just got done talking about this. Is Andy Dalton elite?
Oh my god!
Oh, what?
I just had to throw a quick joke. I know you like Dalton a lot in fantasy a lot of times.
It's my dog.
All right. Last team in this division is the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think pretty much around the room, we weren't really getting too far into prediction-based stuff. So, but I think most of us feel as though the Steelers are the best team here.
Are we just skipping obviously the Browns because they're that bad in history?
Yeah, all right, we'll talk about them. All right. Same question as always.
We talked about the Jets. We're talking about the Browns.
All right, I guess we will. Same question as always for the Browns. What do we truly expect to see from them this year? It seems as though they're stockpiled with some young talent on that roster. I think everybody here kind of likes that coaching staff to a degree, likes the general direction they're heading.
Yeah.
But we've been here before. So, what do we need to see from the Browns this year?
I'm drinking the Miles Kool-Aid juice this offseason. Like the Browns, I think the Browns are going to be probably the second best team in this division this year.
Right. They're finishing second in that division.
Now, granted, that could mean like 8-8, 7-9, maybe even. But no, I think a 700% better season than last season for the Browns would be a good finish.
when you put it in percentages.
Yeah, ESPN really went out on a limb last week and put the Browns as one of the 5 teams they expect to improve.
Oh, wow.
Way to take a shot. They go 2-14 and be twice as good as last year. I'm gonna
exactly.
Now, speaking of out on a limb, you ready for this? Since I'll ignore the fact that you said Pittsburgh, this is the second best team we've talked about so far tonight.
Well, I mean, when you think about some of the teams that we talked about, it's
irrelevant.
It's still not.
Think about what I said. We've talked about 7 teams, and the Browns are the second best. There's no doubt in my mind. Listen, the running game is outstanding. The line is outstanding. The weapons are pretty decent on the outside. Kenny Britt is a very blah name, but he's a 1,000-yard receiver for the Rams last year. I mean, Corey Coleman, we're high on across the room. David Njoku as a tight end. The quarterback, they have to figure it out, obviously. But there are definitely teams with worse situations than Kessler or Kaiser. Yes, Rocco, you are one of those teams.
Or Brock.
I'm just not even going to include Brock. But what excites me about the Browns is the youth on defense. I like what they've done on defense. Now, listen, not top 5 kind of thing, but, I mean, you can unleash those hounds a little bit with Ogba, with Myles Garrett. Jabril Peppers, I'm excited to see what they do. All leading up to draft season, we said, man, the team that drafts him's got to have a plan for it, and we'll see what they do. And now we know what team that is. I don't know. I mean, really, the Ravens are better than the Browns? No. The Bengals? No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a staleness thing to me that I'm just so tired of mediocrity in the AFC. I'm excited to see a team that's like rising up from the ashes instead of chocolate. Like AFC East, AFC North for like the last 10 years, you could go in September and pencil in 1 through 4 where they were going to finish, and you'd be right. And like I'm just excited to see a team kind of figure it out and turn things around.
Yeah, no, it's definitely exciting when you think about what they have on the roster there. And I agree. Ultimately, again, it comes down to the quarterback. You've got to get some kind of situation figured out there. I think we've talked about multiple times that we like Cody Kessler. I don't know if that's a product of how good that offensive line is. It gives him a little bit of leeway to, be, average if he needs to be. But I haven't hid my love for their offensive line. I've said they're going to be the number one graded offensive line this season. And I do like them defensively. They have a little bit of a Falcons vibe to them, where early on, it's going to be tough because you have some young guys. But if they come together throughout the season, they can get hot late and win some games at the end of the season by creating some turnovers and by being aggressive on defense. So it'll be fun to watch those young guys develop.
So what you're saying is the Browns defense is youngry.
They're youngry.
Okay. I just wanted to double
Hashtag
check.
youngry. All right, let's talk about the Steelers now. I was starting to get into it when I was pushing on the Browns a little bit there. It's no secret that I think everybody here thinks they're the best team in the division. So what it comes down to is playoff time. Can the Steelers beat the Patriots if they need to go into Foxborough and play the Patriots there? Are they able to do it?
No.
Still no. No. I do think there is a team in the AFC that can do it, and it's not Pittsburgh. They're just not set up right to do it.
Yeah, they're just still too far away at too many different positions. I mean, Tom Brady can still tear apart that secondary. The pass rush still needs to improve. We talk about it every year. They're the second. I honestly think they're the second best team in the AFC, but I don't think they're the ones with the best shot to beat the Patriots.
Yeah, I actually do think that they do have the best shot to beat the Patriots because they're one of those teams that if they needed to control the ball and run the ball, and again, it comes down to whether Le'Veon Bell can stay healthy, which is a huge question. But if they needed to control the clock and run the football, they may be able to do it, especially in an ugly weather game, on the road. So, and I do think that a lot like we just talked about, they have some young pieces on defense that they've really started to put together. They still have some questions in their secondary. They got picked apart there last year. So, we'll see how it all comes together. But I think if there's one team in the conference that could possibly go in there and do it, it might be them.
I actually think their whole team's better. And I do. I think their whole team is better now. And I agree with you, South, about the running game with Bell. And it's no secret that I like Connor a lot. But with that ground and pound that they can run with those two guys, I think that I agree they have the best shot there.
Even with the fact that, number one, Roethlisberger's 3-7 all time against the Patriots, hasn't beaten him since 2011. He's only won one game there ever, and it was against Matt Castle. And he's terrible on the road in general. I think that might be my biggest point, is you got a guy who over the last few years has been awful on the road, and now you're going to take and put him against possibly one of the better teams we've ever seen on the road.
I'll rephrase what I was saying. I think they have the best chance. I don't think they'll do it.
Okay.
Yeah, no, and I'm not saying it's a guarantee they do it either, but I think that it comes down to you have to kind of take the ball out of his hands. You can't go in there and ask him to throw 40, 45 times. You have to commit to just smash mouth football and being willing to run the football. And I don't know that they would, but if you do, I think it gives you a really good shot to get it done. All right, let's talk about the AFC South. We're going to start to get into some more competitive divisions here. First team on the docket is the Houston Texans. Everyone agrees that Houston is a legit AFC threat and that quarterback play has really been what has held them back. Can their current quarterback situation of Savage and Winston get them into a title game, take that next step from last year?
Did they trade for Jameis?
Watson, sorry.
No, I'm
we
just
were
kidding.
breaking news here on the pod.
Yeah. I thought we had an inside scoop.
That was a big
Sorry,
deal. I got excited.
I had to dig on you, Sal.
I'm trying to read fast to get through this AFC garbage.
Man, I hate you so much. No, listen. Houston is, I think, an incredible team running back through the end of the defense. Every question about this team is based on the quarterback position in my mind. You're getting J.J. Watt and adding him back to the number one defense from last year. That's the scariest thing I've ever heard. I'm actually terrified, and I don't have to play the Houston Texans myself. All right? But such a stacked team running back through that if Watson can play even slightly better, or Savage, I just think it's going to be Watson. If Watson can play even slightly better than what the Brock gave you last year, you're at least going back to the playoffs with the potential to, do something special, maybe get to an AFC championship. You're still not better than – listen, this team is still not better than the Patriots. Like, players-wise, they're better than the Patriots, but team-wise, nobody's better than the Patriots. So, regardless, I feel like this is going to be a broken record no matter who we talk about. This team is good enough to get to an AFC championship game if the quarterback play gets better, but that's it.
All right, no other thoughts on the Texans?
I actually agree
All right,
exactly
good.
with what he said.
No, it's I'm not gonna just sit here and take 2 minutes to say what Rocco said.
Yeah, no, I think everybody would pretty much agree. I don't think that their quarterback situation is that much better, and I think that some other teams in the division.
I do disagree with that.
It's way better.
But listen, to make up for as good as the other teams in the division are getting behind them, I don't think it's going to be good enough, is what I'm trying to say. So, yes, you did have a significant upgrade from the Brock, but those other teams are breathing down your neck even more so than previously.
Yeah, I thought you were just saying purely you don't think there was that big of an upgrade.
No, that's a bad phrasing on my part.
No, I got what you said. That makes sense now.
All right, let's talk about the Indianapolis Colts. Obviously, the biggest question right now is on the health and the shoulder of one Andrew Luck. If Luck himself at this point is not sure whether or not he's going to be ready to play, a lot of reports coming out that he could miss the first 2 or 3 weeks of the season with the injury. Nobody's really sure. If he misses a few games to start the season, are they going to lose too much ground in a really competitive division to be a playoff team?
Kind of define a few. I mean, I don't want to be nitpicky, but like if he misses 2, then maybe not. If he misses 6, which has been reported, then they're done. Put a fork in them. I mean, it's a decent roster, but he makes it good. Like he's one of the very, very few players in the league that I think can take this Colts team to the playoffs. I mean, if you remove him from the situation, you have a defense that's been very bad. That is rebuilding. I really like the draft for the Colts. It's not a good line. It's an excellent receiving core. I'm going to say that, out front. The running back situation is okay. We'll see what Marlon Mack has. Frank Gore just quietly keeps churning out 1,200 total yard seasons, which is crazy. But I mean, if you put average quarterback A, our boy Andy Dalton there, the Colts aren't a playoff team. But Andrew Luck, listen, it's that Aaron Rodgers, Andrew Luck, Drew Brees. I'm never going to say this team can't make a Super Bowl. Because if a guy like that catches fire, you're not beating him. Yeah. So define for me to a point how many games he loses. If he misses 6 games, they're done. But he misses 1, 2. Even if they lose them both, they might be all right.
I'm gonna put the gun to your head. Then he's out 4 games.
No, that's too much. It's got to be less than 4 for me. 25% of the season with a roster that I think without looking at the schedule, I think they're a 1-3 team in those 4 games. And you could be chasing 3 games already because Houston and Tennessee, I think, are good enough to be 4-0 teams. And again, I should probably be looking at the schedule. There's this crazy thing called the internet that I could look it up, but I just, at this point, I'm not going to do it. But I just think you could be in trouble. And I said this last year, we argued about this with the Jets, where it's possible for a team to dig enough of a hole that even when you get full strength, you don't play the type of football you would if you weren't in the hole. You kind of mentally start to panic a little bit. Who knows what the coaching is? I think Chuck, God bless his story, but he's not a great coach. So it's just hard to see them coming back from 1-3 for me.
It's the Rams, Cardinals, Browns, and Seahawks.
Rams and Seahawks on the road.
Yeah. So
yeah, that's 2-2 is possible. You're not going 3-1 though. You know what I mean? Like, forget that. So 2-2, you'd have to celebrate.
We just hyped up the Browns for 5 minutes too. So
right.
I don't think without Andrew Luck that's a
I'm being respectful to Deal when I say 2-2 without Andrew Luck in that schedule.
I know you are, and that's what I'm trying to point out here. We're trying, if it was me, you guys would be trying to get me mad. We're just trying to keep Deal happy at this point.
The Jets would find a way to go 0-5 with that 4-game
schedule. All right, so Deal, let's take your temperature real quick here as the resident Colts fan. What's your thought here?
Andy plays game one. He's a warrior, and he's said from the beginning that he's not worried. When you look at him, I'm not sure that dude worries about anything. I'm not a worrier, and he worries exponentially less than I do. So the dude doesn't worry, but just by looking at him, he looks like he's gonna play. And so I think they're just being overly cautious. They're not frenzy, and I think he plays week one, so I'm actually not concerned. Could he get re-injured? Of course, but I think he's going to come back healthy. I hope Moncrief is healthy. Who knows about that guy too? But I feel great about the season. I think the defense got much better. Corner, safety, obviously rookies, but I love them. I think the line is better, at least healthy, so that matters. And I love Marlon Mack. I love Return to the Mack. Have you ever heard that song? Did you hear that song before?
A lot recently.
Oh, okay. So I like Marlon Mack. So I like all the additions, not much in subtraction. And so I like them a lot this year.
All right, next team, the Jacksonville Jaguars. This defense seems really ready to take the next step toward a top-level defense. When you look at some of the talent that they have on paper, and we know that they don't play football on paper. If they did, a lot of teams would have championships that didn't deserve them, obviously. But can they carry the load for this team, especially with the way that a lot of these teams are playing in this division now? If Blake Bortles continues to struggle and the offense is kind of back and forth like they have been. Rocco, as our Jaguars expert, I'll let you go first.
Honestly, the defense is what it is. They were young last year. They got better throughout the season. I think we're going to continue to see them get better this season. The bigger question is can this offense get out of the just disgusting 4-year rut, the 5-year, 6-year rut that it's been in? I'm hoping that Leonard can kind of get them over the hump, make them not one-dimensional, make them not have to throw 50 times a game, because I don't think that's when Bortles is at his best. But, this this team is just – there's something – I think Miles said it best last offseason when we were talking about the Browns. There's just something about, a losing attitude and a losing atmosphere that just kind of tears an organization to the ground. And sometimes, you just gotta cut it loose and just start over, and maybe you can do that by getting rid of a head coach or, a GM or something like that. But there's just so many questions with the Jaguars that it's just, you know that they're not going to win this division. No. I'll say it like that.
It's one of those things where Indy is what they are, but Tennessee and Houston, Jacksonville's defense is definitely good. I think Jalen Ramsey is the type of player that's going to change that atmosphere. Like Rock just talked about. I mean, I'll never forget, I'm addicted to that mic'd up show or the sound effects show where they're mic'd up on NFL Network. And they had him mic'd up. It was week 12 or 13 last year. And he was legitimately sitting on the bench crying. And his coach came up to him and he said, "I'm just sick of losing, man." That's the type of guy that, and obviously a good enough player that he'll get the respect that they'll listen. He's not going to let that crap happen. But the shame of it is, like Rocky said, when Bortles is at his best, Bortles is at his best when the opposing team is thinking about the post-game buffet. What are we having for lunch since we just beat the Jaguars by 30? And then Bortles throws for 2 touchdowns, so you still beat them by 16. But that's because no one was paying attention anymore.
Yeah.
He's just not the guy. He's just not.
I thought you were going to say Bortles is best when the other team's offense is on the field.
Well, that's
also true.
He does his best to get the other team's offense on the field as quickly as possible.
He hurries them on there.
But listen. Here's my only point about Blake Bortles, and then I'm done talking about him. If you can make Allen Robinson look mediocre, I'm done with you. Like, Allen Robinson is incredible.
Yep.
And, like, if you can make fantasy owners frustrated that they owned Allen Robinson, you're a real problem.
You're a real problem, sir.
Yeah, I think we're going to see as we get into some of our prediction stuff. Like, I'm not going overboard with them by any means, but I'm a little bit more up on the Jaguars than most people are going to be this year.
Good luck with that.
Well, now that your jinx is off of them, since you're no longer a fan, I think we'll be okay. But yeah, I like some of the additions that they made. Ultimately, it still comes back to Blake Bortles. I'm not sure. Just like Miles said, like at this point, I think what he is. He gives it away a little bit too much. So it really depends on how much they're willing to lean on Leonard Fournette. That's what it comes down to. And their offensive line isn't like super great either. So it's going to be hard to do that. So, ultimately we could be looking at another potentially tough season for them.
I want to end this with a quote from Denny Green. They are who we thought they were.
All right. The Tennessee Titans will round out this division. With all of the additions that they made, especially at the wide receiver position, they've got a lot of playmakers that they brought in to add to an already tenacious running offense. You got Marcus Mariota, who's on the upswing as a quarterback. The defense, still some questions there, but a lot to be excited about there as well. Is this the time for the Titans to make a run at this division, or are they still off?
I think they're there.
Yeah, it's the time. I mean, the offense was good last year and only got better. I heard on the radio today a quote that I loved, and it's very simple. If you don't consider Marcus Mariota an elite quarterback, you're the problem. So, I mean, like, this guy's a stellar player. The line's incredible. The run game's good. Now they've got weapons on the outside. And the defense is definitely going to be good enough to compete. I mean, Adoree Jackson's going to give them a playmaking component they've not had in the past at corner. Now, he's going to give up his share of plays as a rookie for sure.
Yeah.
But then, the secondary was a real problem for them, and they brought in not just Jackson, but then they have two free agent vets in Logan Ryan and Jonathan Cyprien that they brought in. Where Ryan is a solid corner, and Cyprian's kind of that attitude big hitter that they've lacked. So I really like the way Tennessee improved their team. I have them as the favorites to win this division, in spite of how good Houston's defense and Andrew Luck both are.
Listen, I hyped up the Texans. This is my favorite team in the division. This is my new Jacksonville Jaguars of the for the AFC South. So
they're going to be terrible. They're going 3-3.
So you guys might want to be terrible. No, listen, I've been on the Marcus Mariota train since his freshman season at Oregon. The first game I ever watched him play, I was texting Miles that night. I remember it like it was yesterday, and said, "Wow, this kid's going to be really good at football." And so far, I've been right, and I'm glad that I've stayed on that thought process for this whole time. But yeah, I mean, they're a team that was one win away from the division last year, that got better at a lot of different positions, whereas the Texans won the division last year, but their team is essentially exactly the same except for the quarterback. So can the quarterback upgrade, downgrade, whatever you want to call it in Houston, make up for the fact that I think Tennessee is going to be 2 or 3 games better than they were last year? That's the way I look at it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's move on to the AFC West as we hit into the home stretch and inch closer and closer to talking about the better conference in the NFC. Sorry, I got to keep getting them in. Denver Broncos first up here in the West. Do the Broncos have a quarterback capable of leading this team back into the playoffs? I think everybody would agree the defense is still elite. They still have a lot of great players on defense. They have some good weapons on offense too. So do they have a quarterback who is capable of leading them to a playoff berth?
No. No, I'm going to make this short and sweet. This year, in my mind, what Houston was last year. They are the most complete team without a quarterback. That's just how I feel. Because even if you start Paxton this season, you're not you're getting someone who is inexperienced. You're getting someone who doesn't have the fortitude yet to will his team to victory. So I just don't see it. We're going to see a lot of 14-10 games in Denver this season.
I actually think that they are. I think they're good enough to get back to the playoffs. Sorry, Miles, but because they went 9-7 last year. Do you think they got worse? I think they're at least that good, and I think that with either quarterback having some experience, I think they're better. And I think that they have to realize they have to get Demaryius Thomas the ball about 200 times this season, so they have to try that. So I think they're better than last year, either with either quarterback. So I think they're probably a 10-6 team in the hunt of playoffs.
Yeah, I don't know. The thing that might hold me back there is I really like the Chargers and the Raiders a lot in the division. So we'll see. All that being said, I won't be surprised if they win the division at all. I won't be surprised if they go 7-9 and finish in last in the division. You know what I mean? Like, I guess I'm just not really sure what to expect from a team. Rock, you said they're like Houston last year. Well, Houston won a division and won a playoff game last year. Like,
yeah, but this division.
That's what I'm saying. I don't know what to expect comparing, the AFC South was weaker last year. I don't know what to expect out of Denver. And stupid non-committal kind of thing, but like it's going to come down to, hey, Denver and the Chargers, who wins the 21-17 game? Denver and the Chiefs, who wins the 14-10 game? You know what I mean? So like I could see them going from 11-5 to 7-9, and me being 0% shocked either way.
Yep.
Yeah, it's going to kind of be almost a carbon copy right here, but we're going to talk about the Kansas City Chiefs. They've had a defense that's been good enough to carry them in some games over the last couple years, but the offensive cupboard seems to be getting a little bit more bare. They lost Macklin, and even with all of his injuries and everything, Jamal Charles is gone. There's some questions at the running back position, even though I think everybody would agree that it's a promising group. And then you have the Alex Smith factor. Whether you like him or you don't as a quarterback, he's still their guy. So is the offensive cupboard just too bare in Kansas City? I think that they're kind of like a poor man's version of the Broncos.
I think very, very poor man's, at least on offense. I mean, the offense is night and day to me.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Because they both have bad quarterbacks, but Denver's
at least has other good weapons.
Are great.
Yeah.
I mean,
you know what, though? Like
the Chiefs can't touch Demaryius Thomas. Like
all of them combined.
Thomas is the best wide receiver on either squad. But would any of you argue if I made the point that like Tyreek Hill is the most explosive player on either team?
My problem with Tyreek Hill, I'm really intrigued by Tyreek Hill this year to see if he's a real player or if he's like Dante Hall, Devin Hester light. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, if he's those
guys, those guys. Now listen, Tyreek Hill had the best offensive season that better than either of those players have ever had. But is he the type of player that defensive coordinators can scheme out of a game? I mean, he's not a guy that's going to catch 7 hitch patterns. You know what I mean? Like, they've got to get him involved different ways. And I'm curious to see if we just saw the perfect storm best season of his career last year, or if he's going to turn into a serious issue for defenses for his career. So I'm not going to knock Tyreek Hill at all. I'm just really excited to see what he's going to do.
And
I'm really curious.
Nobody's going to have a kickoff or a punt to him ever again, so we don't have to worry about that's eliminated.
Right.
Yeah.
Giants, they have a history of doing that.
Yeah,
that's true. Real quick, that's a good point. Like, is he Dante Hall or is he Deshaun Jackson? Like, if you could tell Chiefs fans that he's going to have Deshaun Jackson's career, they'd be thrilled.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Like, for sure.
You'd take it in a heartbeat. So obviously Jackson in college, far more polished receiver than Hill was. But Hill has the skill set to have that career. So I'm curious to see which side of that line he is. Is he the glorified punt returner that I can gimmick 5 touchdowns out of every year? Or is he going to turn into a legitimate 1,300-yard receiver?
Right.
Yeah. No, I think the defense is just as good as any other defense in that division. The names aren't there outside of maybe Marcus Peters, who is quietly having the best, second year of any corner ever. So,
right. And,
but
Justin
outside,
Houston,
and
Houston's one of the
Houston,
most
Houston
underrated
is,
players
yeah,
in the league.
yeah. But like the Eric Berry, the unit as a whole is phenomenal and is very underrated because they're the Chiefs and the offense isn't that great. But I mean, they win 10 games a year and they make the playoffs all the time. So, I'm not counting them out. The only thing that scares me, the same thing that scares Miles, is that I think the Chargers got better, and I think the Raiders were good and got better. So, I mean, if nothing else, you upgraded from Latavius Murray to Marshawn Lynch. So,
well, speaking of those two teams, let's get to them because they're two of the more interesting teams in the entire conference, and we kind of get them last here. The Chargers, I think everybody across the board, you read it in media, you watch it on TV, everybody's really excited about what the Chargers have going on out in LA now. And if you take injuries completely off the table, which is hard to do because they get ravaged more than anybody by injuries, as the roster is constructed right now, can they overtake the Raiders as a favorite here and win this division?
Absolutely.
No.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, no.
Now hold on.
No, you're crazy.
Phrasing of the question, can they overtake them as the favorite? No one's going to pick them going in. But you're insane if you think the Chargers can't win this division. That defense is growing and getting way better, on top of the fact that you have incredible skill positions, a great quarterback that's won a lot of games, and an improved line. Even with losing Forrest Lamp to an ACL, it's still an improved line.
Yep.
I'm telling you right now, Melvin Gordon's about to take the league by storm.
Yikes.
By storm. By storm.
Yeah,
you're talking about it.
I'll let you catch your breath.
Go ahead,
I'll let
Gil.
you catch your breath there. if they're healthy, there's no question they're a contender. I mean, we've seen
Keenan Allen's a top 5 receiver if he's healthy.
Yeah, I mean, and if they're healthy, it's definitely a stretch, and it's definitely the if is like as big as the Empire State Building, but if they're healthy, you can't argue that they're a contender. That if they're healthy, they can go to the Super Bowl, no question.
Yep.
But see, this is what drives me nuts about this. Like I'm on the Melvin Gordon train too with you guys. You know that, but like Miles, I'm not trying to bash on you, but you tell me that Keenan Allen's a top 5 wide receiver. We've never seen it.
Yes, you have.
Well, we've seen what he can do.
We've seen it in glimpses of like 5 games here, 4 games there, but like we've never seen it. So like,
he was excellent his entire rookie year.
Yeah,
and then
the
first half of his second year, he's on pace for 136 catches and like 1,400 yards, and gets hurt. So listen, I'm telling you right now, you can't bank on the guy to play. No, but the whole exercise here, what we're kicking around is if they're healthy. If they're healthy, he belongs in maybe not the Julio tier, but the Mike Evans, AJ Green, Jordy Nelson tier. He's right there.
Yeah. And I think that's the whole kicker. And that's why I put that, assuming health in there, because when you look at what Phillip Rivers traditionally does with some of the receivers that he's had to deal with, and then you keep Keenan Allen in there, that's a scary proposition. I mean, that's a 5,000 yard season almost on lock.
Oh, absolutely.
I guess I think the Raiders are too good, a bit better even. That even at their strongest, I don't think LA is there yet.
All right, well, you brought up the Raiders, so this is the last team we're going to talk about. They added Marshawn Lynch to the roster to fill probably the biggest perceived hole on that entire roster, the biggest weakness they had. Yep. Is this the team most likely to challenge and be successful New England for the AFC crown?
Yes. And we're approaching 2 weeks from our predictions podcast. I will, as much as I just gloat about the Chargers, I will be picking the Raiders to win the West. And this is undoubtedly the team best prepped to beat the Patriots. They have the offense that can score with them. And Belichick is famous for taking away what you want and making you beat them the other way. Well, with the addition of Lynch, the Raiders can now beat you both ways. They can take that line and Marshawn Lynch, give him 28 carries and shove the ball down your throat, or you take him away, and Carr has already shown you he's able to hit these receivers down the field for success. And what has historically beaten Tom Brady in the playoffs? guys like Khalil Mack.
We don't know. We don't
Pass
know.
rush.
Guys
We haven't
like
seen
that.
it.
It doesn't
No,
happen
we do know.
often. It doesn't happen often, but when it does happen, it's Khalil Mack on one side, Bruce Irvin on the other side, Mario Edwards Jr. in the middle, and a decent secondary, but especially with Carl Joseph and Reggie Nelson on the backside. I don't love the corners, but I love the safeties. So up the middle, the Raiders' defense is tough, and they have the pass rush to get it done. Will they? I'm not entirely sure. I think the thing that'll hurt is they're going to have to go across the country. If the AFC East was good enough and the AFC West was bad enough, those roles were flipped where the Raiders could get home field, I might like them in the AFC Championship game. But just the competition that the Raiders are going to face versus the complete lack of competition the Pats are going to face, they're going to have to go to Foxborough, and I'm not sure it will happen, but it definitely could.
Listen, the only time Tom Brady loses in his career in the playoffs, other than facing Darrelle Revis in his prime for like the 09 and 10 seasons, if you beat Tom Brady in the playoffs, it's because you got to him.
Yeah, you have Von Miller.
You have to get to him. Von Miller. Yep. Sorry to bring up the Giants, but Justin Tuck and Matthias Kiwanuka and Pierre Paul. You know what I mean? So that's the only way you're gonna rattle Brady is if you get to him. Yeah. So yeah, this is the only team I see with a shot to beat the Patriots at all. And I'm not saying that I think they will or could, but it's the only team that I would, if I had to bet on any team, it would be the only team I would bet on in the AFC.
All right. Well, hey, we got just a real quick window here to sneak in a question that was submitted to us this week. This is going to be our question of the week. And part of the reason why I want to sneak it in is because we've committed to answering your questions, but also because I love the supposed email address that it came from. It came from dealsfence@gmail.com.
The worst. The worst.
They want to know basically fantasy related here. I'm going down to the second part of their question here. Do you pass on a guy because he doesn't fit your system or style of play in fantasy, or does best available usually win out? Sometimes I just don't know how to use a certain guy, i.e. always seem to start him on the wrong weeks, and that makes for a tough draft day decision. Is it the same for the Goons?
It is for me.
Well,
I'm a system guy. Like, I think I said this a couple weeks ago. I can't remember if it was on pod or just to you guys, but like, I'm never going to own Danny Woodhead. Like, I'm just not. I don't care if it's a PPR and you tell me he's going to get 80 catches this year, which is very possible. He's just not the type of back I'm ever going to roster because he has absolute touchdown ceiling and it's not high. I'd rather have LeGarrette Blount this year and tell me he's only going to get 600 yards, but he might score 12 times. So it's just the type of players that you draft. I just don't like that scat back PPR receiver. That's just not a guy. And now, number one, I'm not going to draft him because I don't like that guy. Number two, I usually have my running back stable kind of solid by the time Danny Woodhead's on the board. But yeah, style fits in for me a lot.
I was going to say, in the exact opposite, and I think I speak for Deal also when I say this, we want those guys that stay healthy and stay involved in the passing game as like late round running backs. Like
Danny Woodhead stays healthy?
Yeah.
In what league?
For the most part.
Which Danny Woodhead?
more than Jamal Charles does, apparently.
I won't own Jamal Charles.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, no, I think system absolutely comes into play. If you take a number two receiver on a team, he better be a number two that gets high volume and is not just a deep ball threat, because you may only get like 8 catches out of him for the year. They could be 8 touchdowns, but you run the risk of, not a lot of volume, and you're putting a lot of stock in guys like that. So, I think the system that they play in and the way they're used within that system absolutely matters.
Yeah, the guys I tend to like to draft are the ones that are good, and the ones I like to pass on are the ones that suck. So I like to try to keep to that strategy, and it's been working for me. So I'm going to try to keep rolling with it.
Thanks for sharing your wisdom.
Yeah, I look for that consistency too, though. Like I get what you're asking in that question, like where it makes for a tough draft day, because if somebody has all the potential in the world, but you're just going to have peaks and valleys all season as far as like trying to figure out where I'm going to play them, when is the right week to play them, when's the right week to sit a guy who's been a little more consistent, that makes for a tough time. So I'm probably going to lean, you're kind of where Miles said, for a guy who's going to be more consistent across the board. It may hurt me a week here and there, where a guy has a big week and he scores a lot of points, but I tend to go for that more consistent approach as far as what I'm looking for there. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of the podcast. We want to thank you, as always, for checking in live with us on YouTube. Make sure to subscribe to the channel so you get notifications of when we're going live every single week. We stream this puppy live just about every Sunday night as we get into the season. That night of the week may change, and we'll let you know on that for sure. But we're here every single week. We don't take any weeks off in the Bill Belichick mode. You can subscribe and check us out on iTunes, TuneIn, Libsyn, Google Play, and a bunch more places. You can find all of those ways to listen to the show at footballgoons.com. All the details are there, as well as our constantly updating fantasy football rankings. They're constantly updating every single week, sometimes multiple times a day, depending on how bored we get throughout the day, how much tinkering we want to do. So keep up with us on social media too, facebook.com/footballgoons, and on the Twitter, we are at footballgoons. We want to hear from you guys. We want to get your feedback on the show. We want your questions. We want your comments, your concerns, whatever it is. We just want to hear from you. We want to have some conversation, some back and forth, because we love football in every variety, even when it's the AFC, and we want to talk about it. So reach out to us there, and we'll be sure to get back to you. We'll catch you next time.